When Jimin finally managed to finish the workout, albeit in an almost unbearable state of exhaustion, the trainer approached him. "Good, you've shown some progress," the trainer said in a more neutral tone, though there was a hint of pride in his voice. "But this is just the beginning. Remember, this training will not be easy, and your journey here has only just begun." Jimin just nodded, even though he knew the coach probably still thought he wasn't good enough. However, for Jimin, it was a personal victory. He had faced his fatigue, fought off the discouragement that had set in, and successfully completed the day's training. In his heart, he knew that this training had not only changed his body, but also his mentality. He had to continue to fight fatigue, control his mind and body, and always remember that every step he took brought him closer to his goal. The trainer looked at Jimin for a moment, then gave him one sentence that left him speechless. "Don't stop until you feel you've reached your limit. The limit is just an illusion. When you feel like you can't anymore, that's when you need to keep going." With those words, Jimin felt like he had an epiphany. He realized that this training was not only to test his physical strength, but also to teach him incredible mental resilience. Fatigue may come, but if he can overcome it, then he will be able to face all the challenges that lie ahead, both in the military camp and in the ever-demanding entertainment world. The reprimand left Jimin feeling very surprised and even a little embarrassed. He wasn't used to hearing such sharp criticism, especially after years of being praised for his hard work in showbiz. However, the reprimand opened his eyes. He began to think that fatigue is not a reason to give up, but a test that must be passed to achieve success. Over the next few days, although her body still felt extremely tired, Jimin strived to follow every instruction better, trying to control herself and overcome the excruciating fatigue. He was depressed, but also motivated to prove himself to his coach and himself. One night, after a particularly grueling practice, Jimin sat alone under the starry sky, contemplating the coach's words and his feelings along the way. It was then that Jungkook approached and gave him some much-needed support. "Young, we're all here to learn and grow together." The reprimand left Jimin feeling very surprised and even a little embarrassed. He wasn't used to hearing such sharp criticism, especially after years of being praised for his hard work in showbiz. However, the reprimand opened his eyes. He began to think that fatigue is not a reason to give up, but a test that must be passed to achieve success. Over the next few days, although her body still felt extremely tired, Jimin strived to follow every instruction better, trying to control herself and overcome the excruciating fatigue. He was depressed, but also motivated to prove himself to his coach and himself. One night, after a particularly grueling practice, Jimin sat alone under the starry sky, contemplating the coach's words and his feelings along the way. It was then that Jungkook approached and gave him some much-needed support. "Young, we're all here to learn and grow together." Jimin, who was used to the hectic schedule and challenges of the entertainment world, entered the military camp with great enthusiasm and determination. However, he soon realized that military training was much tougher than he had ever imagined. One morning, after a series of intense physical exercises, Jimin began to feel extremely exhausted. Despite Jimin's best efforts to finish the workout, the notoriously stern trainer soon noticed that he was starting to run out of steam. With a sharp look, the trainer approached and reprimanded Jimin directly. "Jimin, you look exhausted," he said in a flat yet emphatic tone. Jimin tried to smile and wiped away the sweat streaming down his face. "I can still continue, coach," he replied hoarsely, trying to convince himself more than anyone else. However, the coach only looked at him deeper, as if he could see right through him. "Fatigue is the biggest enemy here," the coach said sternly. "You came here with passion, but this training is not just about desire and motivation. It's about how you control your body and mind. Even if fatigue and frustration haunt your every step." Jimin paused, the trainer's words like a bolt of lightning. He was used to the rigorous physical challenges of the idle routine, but here at the military camp, everything felt different. Every movement, every breath he took, and every second he spent in this training felt more demanding. Despite working hard to stay fit and tough during his years in BTS, this military training was far beyond anything he had ever faced before. The trainer stood tall in front of him, as if to emphasize the importance of self-control in difficult situations. You must learn to control your body, Jimin. It's not about how big your spirit is, but how well you can handle it when it starts to fade. When your body starts to give up, it's time for your mind to take the lead. Don't let fatigue control you. Jimin swallowed, feeling a sudden sense of shame. Up until now, he had always relied on his motivation and spirit to get him through everything, but here at the military camp, everything felt much more real. In showbiz, he had always looked perfect, but now he felt fragile. Her small, lithe body felt tired, and her mind, weighed down by pressure, wanted to give up. The coach continued in a more serious tone. If you can't control yourself here, you'll never be able to reach your full potential. You're not just training for the body, but also for the mind. Your physical and mental endurance must be balanced. If one is weak, you will fall. Every word that came out of the coach's mouth seemed to sink into Jimin's soul. He had always focused on his body and appearance, but he realized that this training was more than just physical. It was a test of his mentality, of his resilience in the face of inevitable pain and fatigue. After hearing that admonition, Jimin felt as if the world stopped for a moment. He wanted to prove that he could get through this. However, his tired body said otherwise. His breathing was getting labored, and every muscle felt like it was on fire. He wanted to give up, but the coach was waiting for him, as if forcing Jimin to dig deeper than he thought he could. Reluctantly, Jimin tried to catch his breath, trying to ignore the pain that was growing stronger. "I won't give up," he whispered softly to himself. Slowly, he lifted his body and stepped forward, though his steps felt heavy. However, she knew that this was the decisive moment, the moment where she had to choose to fight her fatigue or just give up. The coach watched him closely, without offering praise or comfort. He simply watched, waited, and saw if Jimin could overcome his limits. Every step Jimin took felt heavier than before, but he kept going. He knew that although the coach was harsh, he also wanted the best for him. Every word the trainer said was not to break his spirit, but to awaken the strength that might have been hidden within him.